Welcome, and thanks for joining us today for our 48th episode of the Restaurant Dealmaker Show, where we discuss pertinent topics regarding the food and beverage industry with industry professionals. My guest co-host today is Chef Roland Passot. Chef Roland is an accomplished veteran of French cuisine on both sides of the Atlantic. Growing up and training in Lyon, culinary capital of France, he received his early training from such renowned chefs as Jean-Paul Lacombe of Lyon de Lyon, who was a 2 Michelin star holder. And additionally, he's got his training from Pierre Orsi at his Orsi restaurant, also with 2 Michelin stars. Chef Roland then moved to Chicago and collaborated with acclaimed chef Jean Banchet la Français. Excuse my French, it is not good, which was widely hailed
Your
as the
French
best.
is perfect. No more.
No, not very good, which was widely hailed as the best restaurant in America at the time in the 1970s. After earning the James Beard Award for Best Rising Star Chef in 1990, Chef Roland opened his own La Folie restaurant in San Francisco in 1988. He quickly earned a plethora of additional accolades, including Best Food and Best French Restaurant in Zagat in 2022, the James Beard Best Chef in California from 2005 to 2007, the Best French Restaurant in 7x7 magazine, 4 stars by the San Francisco magazine, 100 restaurants, and 4 stars, both by the San Francisco Chronicle. He also earned and retained his Michelin star at La Folie for many years, starting in 2005. After 32 years of prosperity and culinary excellence, Chef Roland made his heartfelt decision to close La Folie in 2020, just at the beginning of COVID. Since then, he has enjoyed continued success as culinary director and founder of Vine Dining Hospitality, which includes Left Bank restaurants in Larkspur, Menlo Park, San Jose, and Petite Left Bank in Tiburon, all in California. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Chef Roland Passot and ask him the first question. Chef, how did you get started in the food and beverage business, and what was your first job in the industry?
Bonjour. Yes, my first job was a long time ago, I feel like. So, was 1971, and I was finishing middle school pretty much. I was about 15 years old, 15, 16 years old. Had the opportunity to go work in a restaurant, and in a small restaurant near Lyon, above Lyon. And the chef was the previous chef, the former chef of La Mère Brasier, who was a very well-known mother of Lyon. We call them the mothers because during the war, all the men went to war and the women cook and open restaurants. So she had two 3-star restaurants in Lyon, one in the Col de la Luère called La Mère Brasier. And so this gentleman, that chef, I was very nervous because, I'd really never really cooked before or anything like this. It came to me because as middle school, I was pretty good, but going to high school, I was like, man, this is another world. I was not that great. So I say, okay, what's next for me, And I love to eat. I used to come home and check the pot and pans that my mother was cooking. And I say, okay, maybe I'll try that. And I went and I fell in love with the hospitality industry because it was not just, I cooked, but I also served. So certain weeks were busier than some others. So on Sundays, maybe it was very busy because it was the countryside. So he would ask me, say, mind, we short a server. You mind being in the dining room? And of course, yeah, why not? So I put my white jacket and carving the soul or serving the guest, it was fabulous, to be honest, to get an opportunity to understand both the front and the back of the house. I was lucky for that. But thinking about it, I was living up in that place, and our place to stay was in an old barn, and we used to sleep on hay.
Wow.
So there was not even bathroom or showers.
Oh, goodness.
It was crazy, you just wash yourself like this, and you go back to work and walk in the street, and get to work, and that's it, early in the morning.
Wow.
So that was the good old days. But, I think, luckily, this chef was very good. He was not a screamer or yeller. He definitely was a teacher, and he had worked for a very tough woman, La Mère Brasier. Eugénie Brasier was a screamer, and she was really tough on her crew. But things were. It was an evolution still, but then after that, I went to work for first Les Trois Dômes in Sofitel, then Léon de Lyon, like you said, like you mentioned, and Pierre Orsi, who sent me later on to United States in 1976. So he came to Lyon. Pierre was the best friend of Jean Banchet. And when he came to Lyon, we were opening Pierre Orsi. He hired me as the chef de cuisine. I was 19 years old. I was not a chef. But, he was coming back from United States. He said, hey, one day I'm going to send you over there. It didn't take long. I mean, 6 months later, I think, when Jean came in, he said, can I take your guys with me? And he said, yes. So here I go. I'm going to Chicago. And I went to Chicago and I arrived and I was like, oh my gosh, those big buildings, those big cars. I was like a kid in a toy store, I mean, I came for an experience of 1 year. I thought I was going to stay 1 year, go back to France and continue my learning in different restaurants.
So you're unique. Your background is really basically invested in actual on-the-job training. You never went to chef school. Is that correct?
No, I went to a school. I went to an hospitality school where yes, I did in the same time that I was working in Lyon. So I did that. Because, I wanted to continue my educations and to get my CAP or my BEP. But no, it was important to me to get at least the ideas of to get to that point of learning not just how to cook, but the whole idea of the hospitality. So that was an important part. It was not an expensive school. It was a very, it was like a public school pretty much. So I didn't have to pay anything. I was just going there to continue learning, and in the same time that I was working in restaurant.
So what's your recommendation to aspiring young people today that want to be chefs? As well as getting on-the-job training? What's your recommendation to them?
I think in today's world, I think having a degrees, I mean, you'll understand a lot more and you have a lot of more different opportunities. Before it was like, okay, I'm going to become a chef and that's it. I'm going to become a chef. I'm a chef. And what we didn't understand, it's all the economic goes with it. So, it was important for me. I think today it will be important for me to say, yes, school is important. It'll give you some good roots, Yes, then after you can choose what you want to do. Do you want to work for, the French Laundry? You want to work for a Michelin-starred restaurant, or you want to work in an hotel? There is so many different ways, then you can go through those days who all are different, but they connected. It's all about hospitalities and about being able to find your path. And I think the school give you that opportunity. Where a restaurant, you're going to arrive in a restaurant, then it's a Michelin star, and you're going to focus on that restaurant. They want you to really do a great job, to learn, to move the step, and you're going to stay in that place for, I think, few years before you feel like you can move on to the next place. Where the school give you a little bit better, especially today, management, food and beverage, I mean, food cost, labor cost, things I didn't learn. I didn't know about food cost and labor cost. Then I know how to cook.
Oh, yeah. I understand because I started, washing dishes in my family's business, Zim's restaurants when I was 15 and then cooking, a fry cook. And then, going to college, unfortunately I went to Cornell Hotel School and there I learned some really good management things like hotel engineering, accounting. So I was very lucky. It's nice to have a balance between formal education in the classroom and actual on the job training to get both as you've indicated, is really the best route to go. So, chef, what's your favorite part of the hospitality business?
I mean, for me, it's the favorite place, I mean, for me, as a chef, is nourishing people, making sure that they have the best experience when they walk through the door at La Folie. For me, it was like, even if they're in a bad mood, I want them to leave in a good mood. I mean, I think it's also, so to give them that unforgettable experience, you need to go through, you know, you need to go through every step you can, but it's also connecting with your guest. So for me, it was very important. I was in the kitchen. I was in the kitchen until the last day of La Folie. I was behind the stove with my staff, with my chef de cuisine, with my apprentice, with my commis, with my dishwasher when needed. I mean, we were together as a family, and and was leading by example, but nourishing the people who are coming to the restaurant and give them an uh, unforgettable experience, so they come back, you know y- years after years, but not just once a year, but maybe sometimes 2 3 times a month. And I think it's what's important. It's all about details. It's giving the people's something unique. Then they won't be able to make at home, but also unique in a sense. Then when they walk into your place, they feel like then everybody is in tune with each other, the service, the bartenders, the hostess, the chefs, and we all working for the same visions. So I think it's very important.
So how did you interact with your customers since you were in the kitchen all the time? Did you actually come out of the kitchen and meet the guests from time to time periodically?
I came out of the kitchen. I came out of the kitchen as much as I could. Of course, a lot of time was later on during the evening, but I meet a lot of customers who some of them became really good friends. So I think that connection is important. First of all, you get feedback, and yes, I mean, I will say 99% of the time I had good feedback, but sometimes there's that 1%, and you had to listen, and to be able to say, okay, w- if the argument was about something, then they were not happy for such and such reasons. Either it's was too salty, or it was overcooked, or it was, then you can fix the issues, I mean, and specifically, I was not afraid if somebody say, a server say, oh, they don't like this, or they feel it's too, I will go and make them another dish, I mean, it's the most important part. You want your people to live happy. It's the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to make sure that they come back, they live happy, and they say, wow, I mean, that could have been a catastrophe, but the chef came, talk to us, send us another dish. He agree with us, and you fix your problem. You don't ignore them. You don't say you're wrong and I'm right. Even if you think you're right, you, you embrace that things. Then the fact that they are able to talk to you and tell you. And sometimes it's, like I said, it's in the middle of service. If it's in the middle of service and someone come back with a dish in the kitchen and say, I think this dish is too salty or whatever, I test, I go back, I see it, I say, let me make you something else. Let me make you, my guy had a navy hand, and maybe it was me, but at least you want to acknowledge, then you don't want to ignore it. And also the fact then the server, and it's very important, that part, the servers have to be comfortable enough to come back to the kitchen with a complaint or with a dish who is not right, and not being like screamed by the chef, and say, what, I mean, the good old days, I mean, I used to be a screamer, but I mean, I wanted people to feel comfortable enough in my restaurant. Then people, if something was wrong in the dining room, then they come back to me and tell me, hey, uh, this customer is not happy about that. So we can fix the problem right away, and don't ignore it, and don't wait until you receive a letter and a complaint, and you have to send them a gift certificate and this and that. I'll rather deal with it right away,
You,
because it's better that way.
you got to make sure the customer's happy when he leaves, 'cause especially today, God, with social media and Yelp.
Oh
I mean, you
gosh,
get
yes.
killed if you have a disgruntled customer.
Yeah, I cannot imagine today. It's crazy, the social media, the power of the social media, the power of some restaurants who depend on, who sometimes get killed by social media or, social media is very powerful. So to deal with that today, you have to really be careful. I think it's too much power, to be honest. For me, Michael Bauer was the level, to give you, to give you 3 or 4 star, or to take away half a star, or to give you a little slap on the back and say, hey, be careful, that was not right. And I'm taking out half a star. It happened to me once. And I remember sending him a letter and say, I really appreciate your feedback. We're going to work hard at it. Please come back in a few months. And he did. And he gave us 4 star. And we had 4 star from, for years after that.
For the audience that doesn't know the name Michael Bauer, he was the lead food critic for the San Francisco Chronicle, which is the major newspaper in San Francisco for many years. And you had to either be on his good side if you wanted to, really thrive. I had a client that I put into a restaurant, a McCormick and Schmick restaurant. Uh, it was in Marin County, and he slammed them, and consequently they went out of business in this location as a result of that comment. So uh, reviews can make or break you. There's no question. So did you ever have to comp a meal? For someone that was really
Yeah, of course,
dissatisfied.
it happened a few times.
Well,
One time, matter of fact, talking about Michael Bauer, one time he was in a restaurant reviewing us. So, everybody is on the edge. We had those guéridons with the drawers where we keep all our silverware. And on the top of it was all the decanters with the wine. And there was a customer, I remember, he was seated right across from Michael Bauer, and he brought some very good wine. Talking about $800 to $1,000 bottle of wine. And we decanted for him. The busser came and opened the drawer and put his trays on the top, a heavy tray on the top of the drawer. So it flipped all the wines were on that guéridon. And, we had to go to the table. We went to the table. I went myself. I know Michael was right there. So I went myself, apologized. I said, okay, look, we don't have the same wine, but we're going to give you the same value. We opened, I think, a bottle of $1,500 bottle of wine for them. I invite them back. And Michael was so impressed by that. Then we had such a great review. It can become a nightmare, could turn into very positive. And it was not planned, obviously. We didn't want to have to open a $1,500 bottle of wine for the guest. But at the end of the day, we even re-invite the guest. We became friends and all that. It just happened. It's an accident.
and that was a good move on your part, that's for sure. My father also always had this expression: you don't want to win the battles, you want to win the war. You can lose the battle,
Exactly.
you want to win the war. So that's what you did. That was a very good move on your part. Chef, let me ask you this: you've had obviously a lot of experiences in your career. What event or events have been the most challenging in your career, and how did you deal with those challenges?
Oh, so some events were really challenging. When I was in Texas, I had a catering company. Then I opened with a friend of mine who was a charcutier. So we did a lot of pâté, sausages. We were USDA approved. We were doing pâté and pastry for some restaurant and some gourmet stores and things like that. But we were doing catering, and catering for a party of 20, 30, 40 people, in a home, or a lot of small party too for Stanley Marcus to a lot of different personality in Dallas. I did Prince Charles, matter of fact, in Dallas. That was pretty challenging for me because it was at the mayor's office. And there really was not really a kitchen. But anyway, my most challenging time was in a catering was doing in December, because in December you made your year in December, literally in catering. So we had a party of 40, we had a party of 200, and we had a party of 3,000, all in the same day. So we were, I'll do the party of 40, then I'll jump into the party of 3,000. It was 40 was a sit down dinner, but it was, I think if I remember, it was a lunch, and then the dinner was the 3,000. But we had a bunch of party every day that month. Every day was crazy. So that was very, very challenging. And it was, at the time, we didn't have phone, so it was walkie-talkie. We could talk. It was a big warehouse, and it was the team was the Fabergé eggs. So people will come in on the step and slide down, and it will snow. They had live bears, they had live animals. It was crazy. It was Dallas, and I was just doing the food. I didn't design the whole party. It was a friend of mine who hired me to do the food, but it was very, very challenging. And then, doing personality like Prince Charles or the Prime Minister of China, doing a meal where they were going to use only tongs to, and out of the kitchen was no kitchen. That's how we were going to put all that together. And Prince Charles was fun, it was supposed to be a dinner first, and then it became a lunch where he wanted everybody to walk on people and meet people. And the Princess Diana was not with him at the time. It was right when they were starting splitting up, I guess. But it was nice to meet him. He was a very nice gentleman, very, very clever, very clever. So I think, oh, had a challenge, I think. Maybe my biggest challenge was to open a restaurant in San Francisco in 1988 with $45,000.
Was it an existing restaurant or did you build it from scratch?
Yes, it was called Lacombe. So when I came out of Dallas, Jamie and I got married in April 4th of 1987. And after that week after, interview with at the Pierre in New York. I went to the Pierre in the same time because I used to live in San Francisco in 1980 and be the chef of a restaurant called Le Castel on Sacramento Street. So I knew people in San Francisco. So people were calling me and say, Michel is looking for a chef partner. So I hooked up with Michel of Chez Michel, where Gay Danko is today. And Michel said, yeah, I want to do exactly what Maurice Rouat did with Hubert, I'll give you 50% in 1 year after you come in. So I was like, wow, that sounds pretty good. And the pay was the same pay than they were going to pay me at the Pierre. So I choose San Francisco as quality of life as a young couples who just get married like a week earlier, a week before. And we drove from Dallas to San Francisco, arrived. I got the job right away. I started, and we were starting getting some good press, some good tracking. And but Michel was very impatient, and he said Gourmet Magazine was going to did a review, and I told them, I said Michel is thinking of closing the restaurant. They said no, let me talk to him. It was what's her name? I forget the name of the lady who used to do Gourmet Magazine. Caroline Betts. So Caroline Betts talked to Michel, and no, nothing. He said, if Roland want to buy my business, he can buy my business, but I didn't have any money. Like I said, I had $45,000 in my pocket. That's it. And we were young. He just got married. He closed in November, arrived, so end of April to November, and he closed. He just closed just before the holidays. So I was looking for a job, and I said, oh my God, I'm doing interview again, and here I am in San Francisco. But I had many friends. Gérald Irigoyen, who I gave his first job in 1980 at Le Castel, in the kitchen. He was a pastry chef before. Gérald called me and said, hey, my boss, he was working at the Saint-Tropez at the time in the Avenue. My boss has a restaurant called La Camargue on Polk Street, and you want to get rid of it. It's not working anymore for him. JB, Jean-Baptiste, and I met, and we did a handshake, and I say,
Yes.
how much do you want for the business? He wanted like $200,000. I said, I don't have 200, but what would you open a restaurant with so little money, just me and my wife, and working your butt off then,
Well, you did a great job. You had a wonderful reputation for over 30 years. You were claimed to be one of the best restaurants, in town. And so you really did a fabulous job. And obviously things have changed a lot in the hospitality industry, as you've noticed throughout the years, with operating costs getting very high, labor shortage, high occupancy costs, product costs, et cetera. What changes do you see? I know you're not in the business in the day-to-day arena, but for your perspective of How do you see the hospitality business and its challenges with today's operators and how to survive?
I agree. No, I mean, I think it was a time, and I think COVID had a lot to do with what's happening today. I think COVID unfortunately didn't help. People get tons of money for some restaurant and everybody went on a spending spree. It was like, wow, I mean, there's money. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Now suddenly people are realizing then everything went so high, from the cost of goods to the cost of running, the profit margin. I mean, the profit margin in a restaurant were never great. But, when you did 10%, you say, I'm doing good. 5% now, you're lucky if you can do 5%. So there's a lot of effort, but there's also a change in, uh, uh, I think there's a change in the industry of how you attract, your employee. How you continue to attract people who want to be in that industry, who desire to be in that industry. They really want to come and work for a great place or work for an hotel or whatever. But they have to have the flame. They have to have the desire. They have to have the I want to be the best in that hospitality industry. How do you find those people? I think, they want to be there obviously for the right reasons. But I think today things have changed a lot since I was running my restaurants and since other people are running the restaurants. I think we need to look at the quality of life of, especially of in a kitchen. I'm looking at people working in kitchens and, they work still, for some of them, double shift. For some of them, they work 10, 12, 14 hours a day. And I think that needs to change. Alice Water was pretty smart, I think, when I think about it. Of Chez Panis, she had two chefs. They both worked 6 months and they both had, they both share also the responsibility, but they pay them. She paid them at the time. I don't remember. I don't know what it is today, but she paid them a good amount of money. But they were able to also same thing for the kitchens. So is it to come to have more people? But it costs money to have more people. So it's all about cost and how do you also. But I think the quality of life, the benefit for the employee to attract people in that business is going to be key. I mean, of course, places like Google, who have a bunch of restaurants in their campus and are able to pay chefs a good amount of money, and they work only 8 hours a day. So it's impossible in restaurant business, to just work 8 hours a day unless you create two shifts, maybe, and I don't know how it will work economically, but, I think we need to figure out how to give people a better life, especially in the kitchen. A server is going to come at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, finish at 11 o'clock, midnight. It's not a big deal. But most chefs in high-end restaurant come at 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning, and sometime earlier. And they finish at midnight and 1 o'clock in the morning. And it's not sustainable for, I mean, I did it. And I had some of my employees work for me. I was the same way, I mean, so you lead by example. You dare first, you leave last. But, is it healthy? Probably not. It's not healthy. I know it's not probably, it's not healthy. So how do we change that? How do we come with solutions? And maybe I don't have the solutions, but I think also for the consumer, they pay top dollar today. So it doesn't matter if it's a small restaurant, and doesn't have any star, or a star restaurant could be very, very expensive. But I think we need to find values in restaurant. I mean, when you pay a bottle of wine, $15, you know, do you need to charge the glass $15? No. I mean, if you have a bottle of wine, then you pay $15, and it's maybe where people are complaining in Napa, Sonoma, in a wine country. They say, "Oh, the young generation doesn't drink." I don't think they don't want to drink, but we need to educate them. And in order to educate them, you don't start with like $25 a glass of wine. Because, I mean, they come with their friends, you get 4 people, and suddenly you get $100 just on wine, I mean, and people say, okay, well, I'll have a cocktail or I'll have a beer, and the costs are higher, but how are we going to balance all that? And how can we attract more people to our restaurants, by maybe giving them a better value. So better value in menu prices, and now I see in restaurant like a bistro or a brasserie, and you get, you want a New York, and it's $68. I mean, in my days was $35. 35 was high for a steak. Now everything, the price of meat went up, everything went up. So I don't know how because otherwise, except for the 1% of the society who can afford going out every day, otherwise I don't see the young people say, I'm just going to call Uber Eats and have them deliver me a burger. And it's what's happening, I think, for a lot of them. They just don't take the time of going. I mean, they just don't go out anymore. I mean, it's better to go to a place with a good burger and have it over there. But I think, things changed during COVID. So I think, uh, the value the value has to be better for the customers. So, uh, and I'm not saying you cannot have expensive. If it's something who costs 10 and you charge 50, and maybe it's maybe the thing who costs less, you can make more money on it because they won't see it as a high item. But when you start going to now bistro brasserie and it's $100 per person, it doesn't matter where. And then on the top of that, you get San Francisco healthcare. Then you get the San Francisco. You get the tax, the tips. I mean, you pay 35 to 40% more than your bill is, because most people now give 20%. I don't think I know people who give 15 anymore. Most people do either 18 or 20%. It's the new average. I think in a restaurant business, I do.
Yeah.
So
You see on the mobile units, when people come in, they take your credit card and run it through. They give you the selection of the tip. In a lot of cases, it starts at 20%. It goes 20.
yeah, no, I know. I mean, I bike all the time, and I sometimes, and they say, "How much tip you want to leave?" And I say, "Are you kidding me? I serve myself." So I think the abuse after the COVID, everything went so much faster about raising prices on everything. And I think, of course, with the war, it doesn't help. I mean, the price of gasoline is way up, so prices are not going to come down anytime soon. But can you continue passing it through the consumer and risking the fact that you're going to have less and less business?
Sure. So let me ask you, Chef, of all the many accomplishments you've achieved throughout your career, what single accomplishment is most meaningful to you?
Having two kids. No, I think having two kids and being able to and opening a restaurant. So it's my three babies. So the restaurant came first. The kids came after. So we just got married, never ever had a honeymoon, because I took my wife from Texas to San Francisco. We literally opened a restaurant. The same year we were married, I signed up a lease for I think it was for 10 years, 10 years, yes. And then we had kids. In 1992, Jamie was pregnant with Charlotte. So, I mean, we waited a while to get kids. The restaurant was first, was to be able to also have security and to have, and, a restaurant did work well. We had our ups and downs, definitely. But, overall, I was lucky enough to have a wife who was an accountant, because I was not. I was the spender. She was not, and we were able to make a good living over all those 32 years of La Folie. So that is my biggest accomplishment. I mean, yeah, you get medal, you get best food, you get Gourmet Magazine 3 or 4 times, you get Michelin-starred, you get this, you get that. But at the end of the day, it's your accomplishments, what you have done for you and your family and the people also. One of my biggest accomplishments is to have all those young people who were able to open their own restaurant after working at La Folie and will still talk about it all around the United States. So I think that is a big personal achievement, and I feel good. I feel like I have kids everywhere. And that make me feel good, to hear their success story now, to hear that they have not forget me. then they still talk about me today. So it's great. It's like having some other child who are going and being successful in their own ways, in their own world, of cooking. Richard Eddington was now who had read in Napa, and had uh, Jason Alversons, who have Scott McNaughton's, who had the Flour and Water. Jason has what's the name of his restaurant group? I forget now, but I think it's called Neighbors Restaurant Group, and I have many, many, many like this all over the country. So I have a woman chef who is in Brooklyn. She had 2 restaurants over there, and she's very successful. So, I think that is also part of the accomplishments, more than having the stars and being the best of the best. And you want to be the best of the best. Chefs have a huge ego, and I did have a huge ego. My head was bigger than the doors I can go through for a while. So, but you need to learn how to become more and more humble, and also look back and say, what do I, just like you asked me, what do I have achieved? And, the achievements are, counted in many ways. But, I think having those achievements, for me, they count more than any others. Being able to have people after working at La Folie saying, wow, this was a great mentor for me. Because mentoring is one thing you need to do when you have a restaurant, and mentoring and giving an opportunity to your crew and things was difficult for me, I have to say, at the beginning. I was not easy going, I was like, it's my way or the highway. And more, I found chefs who were so talented, and I learned from them too.
So, Chef, what are your plans for the future? I'm not going to say growth plans because I know you're in retirement mode.
No, probably not, but for me, and my wife, we're doing a lot of things for charity events, like Sprout Chefs Training, the Jacques Pepin Foundations, uh, also Homeward Bound of Marine. I do a lot of things like this, and I like to do that because I feel like then giving back to the community, helping young people or older people how to find uh, a trend, a trade will help them, make a living and not being homeless, like for homeward bounds and things like this. So I go teach over there, I do dinner over there, uh, and same thing for Sprout. I just did a dinner for Sprout Chefs Training in my house, who was sold at an event, and they came to my house. I cooked for them. Michael Bauer came help me out to serve and to do the dishes. So it was great. We had fun. It's to give back to the community. I did that about 2 weeks ago. Yeah, at my house. Yeah, yeah. No, he's doing well. He's doing well. He's traveling a lot. So yeah. So for my future plan is like being able to continue doing that, being able to do some small dinner. Sometimes I have people who ask me and they say, okay, if you want a dinner, and I've done it in few occasions, I say it's in my house. I don't go to your house because it's, going to a house. I've done catering for so many years, for 6 years in Dallas, and I know you load your car. You always forget one thing. It could be something major or something. So you load your car, you arrive at the people's house. Then you have to figure out where things are, where the pots and pans are. Where in my house, I know where everything is, and I can cook and have a nice kitchen, as you can say. It's Airbnb. It's all open, so it's good. I'd rather do that for 10 people at the max. 10 is the max, and I'd rather do 6, 8 people than anything else. But otherwise, it's traveling the world if I can, and enjoy life. And biking, I bike a lot.
I know you do. That's great. Yeah, just got to be careful doing those mountain bikes by yourself, though. You got to
Yeah,
make
I
sure you
know.
have your phone with you.
I'll be careful. I fell a few times, so I'll be careful
You
now.
have to be careful, definitely. Okay, Chef. Thank you very much for this very informative presentation and for making so many contributions to the food and beverage industry and for sharing your culinary passion, your entrepreneurial vision, and your operational excellence. You've set an example for up and coming chef entrepreneurs who aspire to become successful in this challenging industry. So, if someone wants to get in touch with you, Chef, what's the best way to do so?
Or they can send me an email, or they can call me. So it's Passot, and you're going to laugh, at AOL. I have a Gmail, but I'm still using my AOL. Passot at AOL. And otherwise, they can contact me through my Instagram or through my Facebook, but I use Instagram a lot, or LinkedIn if they want to send me a message. And I'm always open to people who want to talk. I mean, I love to do consulting for people who want to open restaurants or to do project and they have, or designing a kitchens. I'm always open to that. So
That's wonderful.
I'm working with my wife on a website. We're going to do Maison Passot. La Folie encore.
Nice. That's wonderful. That's great. Yeah, to keep yourself
Keep
productive.
myself busy. I love the industry. I'm part also of Ment'or. Ment'or is Thomas Keller, Daniel Boulou, and Paul Bocuse. It's for the to really teach to mentoring people, but also it's the Bocuse d'Or. So Bocuse d'Or USA, I go judge. I was just judging in Las Vegas last month.
Nice.
For young chef, young commis, and I judge usually for the Bocuse d'Or in not in Lyon but in America. This year it's going to be in New Orleans, like last year, so like 2 years ago. So
Great.
and then
Great.
the final is in Lyon in January. So Ment'or, check Ment'or. It's a great organization.
Okay. How do you spell that for the audience?
MENT
Uh-huh.
'OR.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you for that. So if you have any questions from the presentation, you can email them to me at steve@restaurantrealty.com, and I will respond shortly after the show. Some of our immediate future co-hosts include Pete Sitnick in June. Pete is a longstanding operator on the San Francisco restaurant scene and is currently the managing partner of Epic Restaurant and Water Bar Restaurant. And he has been involved in supervising and operating over 20 restaurants in the San Francisco Bay Area and across the country. Also, we have Stacy Scott, the owner of a well-known catering company called The Art of Good Taste. She's been in business for 40 years, and some of her clients include Martha Stewart, Bruce Springsteen, Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin, and the rock group Journey. Renzo and Cristo Azzarello, the owners of Luna Blue in Tiburon, which is one of the best Italian restaurants in the Bay Area. Renzo is from Sicily and Cristo is from Oxford, and together they run a top-notch operation. And there are several other new deal co-hosts that we will be announcing shortly. Thank you very much, Chef, again for joining us today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
It's always nice to hear an expert expound on hear their knowledge. And thank you all for joining us today. If you want to get in touch with me, I can be emailed at steve@restaurantrealty.com, or I could be reached toll free at 888-995-9701. Take care of yourself and take care of others, and stay well. Thank you all.